They counted her out too soon. They assumed Caitlin Clark was finished. After repeated fouls on Clark, Griner was ejected, and the officials turned in one of the most questionable performances of the season. Meanwhile, Angel Reese's supporters mocked Fever fans, telling them to lower their expectations. But there was one thing they didn't account for: the fire Clark and Sophie Cunningham were about to bring. Coach Stephanie White opened the game with a shaky lineup. No Sophie Cunningham, no Lexi Hall. The energy was low, the pace was off, and the defense lagged behind. Even while not fully healthy, Clark put up Indiana's first points, grinding through the early minutes. The opposing team saw weakness. They surged ahead, confident they had broken the Fever. Their coach thought he'd figured out how to shut down Caitlin Clark, but White didn't stick to the original plan. She flipped the script. When Sophie Cunningham checked in and joined Clark, Hull, and Kelsey Mitchell on the floor, the tide turned instantly. Suddenly, there was life, fluid ball movement, non-stop effort on both ends. The Indiana Fever re-emerged in full force. If someone was off, another stepped up. And Sophie? She brought a whole different kind of impact. Her footwork, her court vision. There's a quiet brilliance to her game that elevated everyone around her. She might just be the most polished, graceful force in the WNBA. Lexi Hull is currently leading the league in three-point shooting percentage, and she's proving why. She took 2 shots from deep and buried both. Indiana wasn't just relying on Caitlin Clark anymore. They were sending a message. If you think Clark's the only threat, think again. They had other weapons, and they were ready to use them. Then there was that player, the one known for playing borderline dirty. Since their last matchup, she's made a habit of yanking Clark's arm on every drive, tugging at her jersey, doing everything she can to disrupt her rhythm. And somehow, the referees kept looking the other way. But how Caitlin and Sophie Cunningham would respond, that's what changed the game. Just look at the hustle. Sophie and Lexi were everywhere, diving for loose balls, locking down on defense, sprinting end to end. The intensity was relentless. Then Sophie started heating up again. Caitlin spotted her cutting and made a brilliant read. She had an open path to the basket but passed it up because the team needed threes to close the deficit, and she trusted Sophie to take the shot. It was the right call. The shot just didn't fall. But Clark wasn't done. She attacked that same defender again. Another clear foul. Ignored. So she answered the only way she knows how, with grit. She came right back, drew undeniable contact, and this time, the refs had no choice. The defender, frustrated, shoved Clark after the whistle. Still, no flagrant was called. Then that same player tried to intimidate Caitlin, getting physical and in her face. Caitlin didn't flinch. She simply looked her dead in the eye and said, "I'm not scared of you." That one line flipped the entire tone of the game. The other player didn't realize she had just lit a fire. Clark responded instantly with a laser-sharp assist, followed by another brilliant setup. Then she drilled one of the smoothest three-pointers you'll see in a WNBA game. By the end of the first quarter, the Fever had clawed their way back. When the second quarter opened, Indiana came alive. Suddenly, they were the most electric team on the floor. The ball was flying, players were cutting, and off-ball movement was constant. Caitlin and Sophie's court vision on full display. Natasha Howard stepped up big time, delivering on both ends. And Coach Stephanie White made a bold move, subbing in Darius Dantas for the first time. She's not an all-star, but if she can knock down 1 out of every 3 or 5 attempts from deep and bring more energy than Dana Bonner, she becomes a crucial piece off the bench. Meanwhile, Gurrier kept pushing the limits with cheap shots, but Coach White managed the rotation smartly, keeping legs fresh with the Liberty matchup looming in less than 24 hours. And Caitlin, she was clearly saving her biggest burst for that next showdown. Kelsey Mitchell, meanwhile, delivered her 3rd consecutive strong performance. With her locked in and the chemistry between these core 4 players growing by the minute, this Indiana Fever squad is starting to look flat out unstoppable. This was the Indiana Fever team everyone had been waiting to see. The squad fans believed in from the start. With 4 legit offensive threats on the floor, they were ready to make a statement. Caitlin Clark returned to remind everyone exactly who she is, the best in the world. Critics said she had an off night, but the numbers told a different story. Guess who led the game in assists? Caitlin Clark. She was also one of the top scorers and had a plus-minus of +5 while on the court. And let's not forget, she was breaking records left and right, and we're just a few games into the season. That opposing player couldn't contain her. Clark responded with dominance, dropping dimes, orchestrating plays, and flipping the momentum entirely by the end of the second quarter. Then things boiled over. That player, clearly frustrated, started barking and throwing threats Caitlin's way. Clark didn't bite. She kept her composure. And yep, just to confirm, it was Ryan Howard. Congrats, Ryan. You're officially part of WNBA history. Go ahead and frame that photo of you and Caitlin Clark. One day, you can tell your grandkids that you played against the greatest to ever do it. But the game didn't cool down. The rivalry reignited in the second half. Caitlin wasn't feeling 100%, but she refused to sit. The Atlanta Dream's coach looked visibly rattled, and so did their defense. Without Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham, Indiana's defense took a hit. Howard got her points, but Caitlin answered with smooth crossovers and precise assists. It wasn't her most efficient shooting night, so she adapted, shifting her game to elite ball handling and surgical playmaking. That's what the greats do. Caitlin Clark took a brief rest, and the Fever immediately lost their edge. But the momentum swung right back when Sophie Cunningham checked in and steadied the ship. As soon as Caitlin returned, Grier racked up her fifth foul trying to stop her. Ryan Howard managed to score again, but before she could even soak in the moment, Caitlin Clark went coast to coast and finished strong at the rim. Even on an off night, she's simply unstoppable. Then came Lexi Hull. Her court awareness was next level. Howard's rough play hit a wall when Lexi and Sophie were back on the court. Their presence changed everything. Caitlin drew another foul and then another, but she just smiled through it all, unbothered. Howard kept coming at her, but Caitlin responded the only way she knows how, with another masterclass. She completely took control in the fourth quarter, and Atlanta had nothing left to throw at her. The refs tried to keep the Dream within reach, but Caitlin and company weren't letting up. Sophie Cunningham had enough. She spoke up and told them to pay attention. Watch closely, she seemed to say, and she wasn't exaggerating. Sophie didn't even move, yet still got whistled. Meanwhile, a fan was caught on camera yelling at Caitlin to stop crying. And that raises a bigger question. What's going on with the WNBA? Where's the accountability? Why haven't we seen an official response to all of this? Something needs to change. Howard gave Atlanta the lead once more, but Caitlin Clark checked back in, despite being swarmed by defenders. Then Natasha Howard swung the momentum again, regaining the lead for Indiana. Howard answered with a three, but Lexi Hull struck right back before she could even celebrate. Howard fired back, yelling, "You can't guard me," like she'd sealed the win, but she spoke too soon. Caitlin responded instantly, drew a foul, nailed the free throw, tie game, 3 minutes to go. With the clock ticking down, Caitlin Clark orchestrated the final act. Howard looked stunned. Stephanie White made her move. She unleashed Sophie Cunningham. Sophie stormed back in and shut down the WNBA's physical play. No hesitation, no fear. Ann was called for traveling. Howard hit one free throw but missed the second. Lexi Hull snagged the rebound. Caitlin wasn't feeling 100%, but Sophie had her back. With the ball in Clark's hands, the Fever might as well have been holding a winning lottery ticket. She carved up the defense and delivered a perfect assist. Then Sophie stepped into full enforcer mode. She went right at the Dream's physical defenders, got fouled, but didn't slow down. She stole the ball, beat the first defender, then the second, then the third, and buried the free throw. No hesitation, no mercy, and she still wanted more. Sophie Cunningham was everywhere. If you felt that intensity, don't forget to like and drop a comment.